I've been working on the air conditioning system for my new BD Brightdrop van, and this video is going to be how I installed it, how it worked, and everything else. I have to ask for your forgiveness because truthfully it's a little bit piecemeal, because while installing the air conditioner wasn't like super hard as far as like the actual installation, there was a lot of trial and error trying to get the air conditioner where it's going to sit and everything else on the Brightdrop, because the Brightdrop's roof, I have a translucent roof. Where the roof is, it's like somebody took Charmin and put it over some aluminum rails and then sprayed it with some varnish. It's just so light. So I finally figured out, I believe, the best way to mount this thing and the best position as far as like if the door's open in the back, you can still get some airflow through it if you wanted to. Shut the door, it's not going to block it. So here's the video. It'll be chopped up in a few places. However, I think you'll get the general gist of it, and the end result was awesome. So let's get going. All right, I got it in. I got in my OutEquip. Is that right? OutEquip? Yeah, OutEquip. OutEquip. OutEquip, I guess. Okay. Air conditioner with heat. Bought it on Amazon. I put a link down below for that. And let's see what it looks like. This is a 12-volt AC rather than, you know, one of the 110s like the old RVs used to have. Those things you had to have a generator run. These are supposed to run off of 12 volts. It got a battery right there. We're going to give it a shot here in a few minutes to see if I can get it hooked up. But I think this is going to be just the ticket for cooling down the back of the new service truck. Alright, here's all the crap that comes with it. Mounting studs, part of a remote control. I don't know where the rest of it is. I guess we'll find it here in a minute. Or not. Okay. Well, that's a little depressing. I did find the back of it, and it was pretty much smashed, the battery cover, so I may be able to take a heat gun to it and straighten it out, or maybe they'll send me another one. Who knows? But anyway, this is the bottom of it. I'm going to go ahead and hook it up to the control panel. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections, and it should be able to fire up. Okay, so that's the wiring basically. And then this is going to go over right here. So that's what it's going to look like. There's a trim ring that goes around it and a bunch of foam and crap, but I should be able to turn it on after I connect my cable. Alright, I got the power supply hooked up to my lithium-ion battery, and it's daisy chained into my Bluetti solar generator, electric generator, whatever you call it. And it should be ready to fire up. And that air is, woo-wee, that's some cold air coming out right there. I'll get a infrared thermometer later and double check what it's coming out. I mean, intake and exhaust really isn't hooked up, but it's warm coming out of the top. And I'm telling you, this thing is super quiet. So as you can tell, there's not a lot there to hold a 45-pound air conditioner. There is this crossbar, so this is in the way. I've got to get rid of this light. I'll try to put it over there. I'll try to put it over there somewhere, or I don't know. But this light's got to go, because this is where the outlet for the air conditioner is going to go. Alright, so I got the hole cut in this flimsy roof. And this, you can see that this is a good support for the air conditioner. But this, not so much. So I put a one rod across, which ended up not being that great, so I'm going to use a piece of unistrut. I did a nicer job of cutting the hole than the hack job here. I'll put a piece of metal over that, but let me show you how this is going to go in. So I've got this unistrut here, and I'm going to glue it in, but it should give it a lot more structure for the air conditioner. Alright, I got my bar in. I've got like the PL Max. I'm using the PL Max Loctite, which is like, I don't know, $12, $14 a tube. But it's supposed to be like the absolute best adhesive. I got my 2 poles pushing up, let it dry where it's supposed to dry. And then over here, I'll put a bar with a couple nut certs up underneath just so it doesn't try to come down at all. But it should be a lot more substantial. Should be a lot more less wiggly. And I may need to put a little bit of wood in between here just for support for the down, but I haven't decided on that yet. This is a challenge. You can kind of see how stout this is. Not much there. So I'm pretty happy with the bar going across here. It's rigid. We've got the brackets here holding it up. So I think we're going to be okay with these are about 45 pounds. So I've got to get the gasket on and then run my run the electrical down through this hole. I'm going to come in and probably go across here. Awesome. Okay, so the opening can be 9 by 14 or 14 by 14. And 14 by 14 is about here, so obviously I want to cut this back to here for a 14 by 14 opening, right? So instead of the gasket sitting here, it'll sit there. And I may put a couple of these thin rods going across just to give it a little more structure. Alright, so this, man, I'm actually surprised. This came out really good. It's a lot more substantial than just that. So I'm going to get the gasket put on and then slip my OutEquip through there and see if I can get the power cord down through here. It turned out very substantial, a lot better than this, which is like toilet paper. So I'm happy with the way it came out. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and it's not going to bounce around. This is how I put it in a Brightdrop with really no no structure except for this factory one here and then this little flimsy thing. So the channel glued in there with some support stops did a great job. And this, while it does bow a little bit by itself, it made it nice to be able to mount, but it was a pain in the butt having to router out the cover that goes on it. So we'll see what it looks like when I get finished with it. Alright, so that's how it turned out looking right there. I think it looks really good. Let's crank it up and see how it works. I've got it hooked up to one battery, and it's been hooked up on there a couple of days, been running a lot, and still I'm at 13 volts after all the time I've run it. So let's crank it up, see if it works. Set for 71, and it'll slowly start. There we go. The outlet temperature is right at, dang, 32? Up in there, 32.5 degrees, so it doesn't get colder than that. But it looks good up here, and it's quiet. It's not going anywhere. I got my panels. I got one there and one there. I've got one more coming that's going to go right behind it. So I'll have 3 200 watt panels wired in parallel. That'll be my next step to get some power running into the batteries. But this thing is super quiet, and it cools it really well. Okay, so you may be thinking to yourself, why didn't you do a video on how you actually installed the thing? Well, the main reason is there's 1,000 videos out there where people have installed these stinking things in RVs all the time, every day, all over the place. So there's no reason for me to go through the same thing again when you can go watch one of their videos on how it's installed in a RV. Now, the difference between an RV is they may have a roof like this with wood structure or whatever they got, and this is the roof to a Brightdrop. So got to build the structure in to be able to hold it up. Otherwise, I think it would just eventually bounce all the way through and hit the floor of the van on the inside. So I don't know. But honestly, if you want to see a video on how the actual unit itself is installed, just pick any of those 1,000 videos out there about the 12-volt air conditioners, and it's, you know, that part's basically the same. But man, how crazy is that? All right, so the frame looks good on this. It's very sturdy. It's basically these flat rods glued in. I don't think I really needed these going across. It couldn't hurt. I mean, what the heck. The biggest structural support is right here. It's glued in, and then I've got the 2 support pieces that are bolted in there. So this factory one here looks great. Don't have to do anything with that. Just put some of these in, because when you tighten it down, you want this pressing up against this, and I don't believe this paper here is going to do any good. Now, I did make one critical mistake when I was putting it in, and that was with the gasket. What it says is if you've got a 14 by 14 opening, make sure to put this back like 2.5 inches. What did it say? 2.3 inches to 3 inches from the front opening to seal it. And what I did was I had it too close. Let me show you. I didn't quite understand what they meant by drainage cutout, but that's what these square holes are in the back. That's a drainage cutout. And I had it further up, and there was an opening here which just allowed water just to run right into the bottom of it. It's still drying out a little bit, but as soon as I get this gasket moved forwards and seal it up, that should be just fine, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll with that. So here's actually the part that I missed. The chassis drainage cutout must remain outside the gasket for proper drainage. Okay, so I was looking for, I really didn't see the drainage cutout. Well, that's the whole drainage cutout right there. All that vented looking thing on the bottom, that's the drainage cutout, which, boy, that's easy to understand. And then important, I didn't see that, for 14 and 14 openings, offset the air duct 2 and 3/16 to 3 and 15 inches rearward to ensure the drainage cutout remains outside the gasket. So if you can look at that picture, those holes, this part is completely covered right here in the back. And if we look at mine, now that I've moved the gasket up, then those holes are covered, and I'll caulk the crap out of this thing. Okay, so that's better. It's all sealed up. Water can't get through there. Beautiful. Now I can really put my brackets on. Okay, I got the brackets on, and now I got to cut my cover and then cover it with headliner material to go on the top there, and then I'll be able to put on the outside of it. There she is, all mounted down. You got these rubber spacers that go in behind. I got my 3 solar panels up here, and if I was selling this thing, I would have to make that much neater, but boy, I tell you, I used some of this other stuff and it sucked. Some sticka was crappa. Ended up having to go back over it with silicone, which worked great. So I would say that sticka stuff, stay away from. But I got my 3 200-watt solar panels mounted, all ready to go. And then I've got the air conditioner. She's tightened down, ready to rock. And it ain't moving. So those 2 braces, the one factory brace and then the second one I put in, seem to be just enough to hold it in place, no problem, without a lot of movement. So the panel looks pretty good. I'm going to cut another piece and put it in here later, but panel's good and glued in, feels solid, awesome. And all I got to do now is go ahead and connect up my panel and screw it in. Alright, let's crank this thing up. Set on cool, highest fan. Alright, it's a slow start. Uh-oh, I hear something going on. I've got the wiring into my bus bar over here, and it's fused on this one, on the hot one. and it looks like we're pulling, I've got it on turbo, which is the most highest setting, and I'm pulling 44 amps. I've unplugged my solar panels temporarily just to see what it would actually pull itself, and I don't have anything else on. So yeah, and it's super quiet. Let's see what the temperature is. .46 degrees, which is good, which is over 30-degree drop. So awesome. With my solar panels hooked up, I'm using 24 amps, well, 24.6 amps per hour, and my solar panels right now are creating 22.39 kilowatts to offset that. So if there wasn't any solar panels, it would run for about 6 to 7 hours on full high max turbo, and I guess 12 hours max turbo if you had solar panels running all the time. But anyway, for what I'm doing, this would be perfect. Now if I run it down, you can run it down out of turbo mode. Let's say let's say fan level 2. I'm actually at fan level 2. I'm actually gaining amps. So, whew, nice. All right, so that's going to be it for the OutEquip. I'm really happy with it. As far as installing it into a Brightdrop, I'm going to put a link down below for the OutEquip. I also got a link down below for the Nutsert, which has been invaluable to be able to install a ton of stuff in the back of it. I'll do more videos on that later. This one bar going across is a pretty critical piece of the puzzle, because you've got this one bar going across in the back, which is the factory one, but you need a front support to be able to hold up that 45 pounds, and it's actually really sturdy in here. It doesn't give at all, so I'm super happy with that. And then in the hole, the 14 by 14 hole, that's what I used. I used some of this, ordered it online. I'll put a link down below where I ordered it. It wasn't that expensive, but just this tubular aluminum, and just basically made it into a square, cut it, because what happens is it basically just gets sandwiched up against the paper thin roof section. So I just glued it in there with some clamps, and then when you put your air conditioner on, it sandwiches in between the opening of the thing. So it worked really well with that. I mean, when it tightened down, it was like it wasn't going anywhere. As far as like not using something around the opening, I think it would be very difficult, because there's nothing for it really to push against. You need something, you know, a little bit of metal or aluminum around that opening, the 14 by 14 opening, and make sure you don't do what I did and not push it back far enough and let the water just run through. So that should be about it on this. Any questions, comments, post them below. I'm super happy with it. I did try the heat out on a cooler night, and you get a little bit of heat. It'll warm up a little bit in the back, but I mean, as far as like when it gets cold, it's not going to heat up a very large area. You're going to have to put in a different heater. I've got a diesel heater that I'm putting in the very back, and it'll vent down below, and that's going to be super cool for the winter. So that'll be another video. But any questions, comments, like I said, let me know. I'm super happy with it. It does come with the remote. Okay, I found it here. The remote does work great. Turbo mode, and I think there might be a way to put it into heat, but the only way I figured it out to get the heat on is to use the remote. So I'm sure there's some way to do it, but I haven't even really tried that much. But as far as like the way it looks, the low profile, it's a winner in my book. Okay, so anyway, as far as any questions, comments, post them below. This thing worked absolutely great. It was a little bit of a challenge to kind of figure out with a paper thin roof how to mount it, but it's sturdy, it's glued down, and we're ready to rock and roll. I'm David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.